Hi everyone, welcome to #NoFilter. This week we are talking about a very important issue. Some people think it's fun, some people think it's boring, some people hate it. The idea of studying and what tips you can do to succeed in your education. Hi. Okay. Hi everyone. Welcome back to #NoFilter. I'm Ruchika Bindra. Today we are talking with our guest panelist, Stuart Ackerman. He is the Ontario Certified Teacher and Author. Welcome.
Thank you.
We're so happy to talk to you about this exciting topic of studying.
Everybody's favorite topic.
Everybody's favorite topic. And we have our wonderful teen guest today. Not to my surprise, it's all men because they love to be studious and studying. We have Anish, we have Mark, and Matthew. See, I got it right. You should be proud. My teens always think I get their names wrong, but I don't. So, Stuart, studying, prepping, getting ready for it. It's something that a lot of, obviously, the kids hate, but they know they have to do. As somebody who's been in the education system for so long, what is the #1 thing you would say to somebody who's trying to prep and trying to get ready for, I guess, exams, especially now?
Well, that's a really hard question. There's so many different variables involved. But I say the most important thing, really, is to plan ahead. You know, the problem is, and I've been guilty too, everybody procrastinates, everybody waits till the last minute. And it just doesn't work. Okay. So, you know, usually what I suggest to students is they have, you know, like a large calendar, and they keep it on their desk, and they write down, okay, you know I have my exam or a test coming up in 3 weeks, to write every day, you know, study 20 minutes for my history and whatever, or math, there's a test coming up, or an exam, and you need a plan. You need a
so you
planner,
kind of need a
plan.
goal and you need to divide it up along
Right,
the
it
way.
can't just be, you know, I'll come to it when it
it's
happens.
close to the
right,
date.
it's close to, right? Because then it's too much, and kids are overwhelmed these days. Best thing is to have a calendar. I usually tell kids like to have a color code. So green is like not so important, but it's coming up. Yellow, okay, I need to slow down and realize this is coming up sooner. I need to study. Red means okay, I really need to work hard.
This
at this
is due
because
like
it's coming
now.
up.
This is
so
coming
preparation to answer your question. One of the key factors involved.
So guys, what phenomenal preppers are you? Tell me.
I'm probably not a phenomenal prepper.
Okay.
I'm definitely guilty of doing everything last minute.
Why? Why do you think you procrastinate?
I don't know. I just feel like I don't have the drive and motivation to do anything beforehand.
Okay.
I also don't have anything like formally written down or anything to let me know that like, hey, this is due this day, this is due this day. I'm just not put together in that aspect.
So we need to gift you a planner, essentially, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
that
work.
You will actually utilize. Okay?
Yeah, it's like for me, what he was saying with the red, yellow, and green lights, I'm at red light all the time. Like, oh no, it's due 2 days. Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that 2 weeks ago.
Why?
Because you have so many things in your mind, you kind of push aside the things that aren't urgent, the green and the yellow colors, but once you get to the red, you're like, okay, now it's time, and you don't really think about 2 weeks ahead. You kind of think of 2 days ahead.
So
instead
Matthew,
of before.
what's urgent to you besides studying? Like at this age, what is more important besides girls and social media?
School doesn't stop. There's always something that's a red light. It's never, you know, completely clear.
Okay. Okay, see, Stuart, the problem is not education. I think it's the distraction these men have. That's where we're struggling to get them on track. So, Anish, I know that you're in college right now, so what's great is you can kind of look in hindsight, right, and look at sort of what Stuart said in terms of planning. Have you kind of felt that now that you've gone to college, you need to be a little bit more, I guess, organized because it's more independent? Have you sort of adopted any specific study prep techniques?
Study techniques, not really. See, here's the thing. I'd like to say that because now I've gone through high school, all of that, I'm now just finishing up my second year of college, I can say that, oh yeah, this, you know, here's how I've improved on, you know, my time management, my planning. Oh, absolutely not.
Okay, so you just fall guilty as...
No, for sure. In fact, I actually just had a situation come up today. I received an email from one of my professors later this afternoon saying that I was in jeopardy of failing one of my courses if I didn't submit some paperwork. And I thought to myself,
if I had a planner and a color code and highlighters,
for sure. And of course, my parents will be like, you know, this is totally your fault. You know, you brought this on yourself. And meanwhile, I'm sitting there on my computer. And I'm like, yes, I know. Stop.
It's sending it to you now, kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. It's the panic. It's the panic that hits you.
Stuart, is there sort of, I guess, is there a safe way to say their stats? Like, are men more studious than women? Are women better at, like, grades-wise when you look at it, and especially, I guess, when you mark across in your career as well? Have you noticed that? Like, can we make sort of an assumption like that or not really?
A little bit. I know statistically that often girls lag behind in math and sciences, and that goes from lower grades to higher grades, and then, you know, they do catch up because they take math and science because they're genuinely interested in it, and they're good at it later on. So there is that gap there. But you know, that's not enough, not a profound enough gap to say, hey, we have a real problem here. Just enough to say, let's pay attention to it right now. There's
something that's, and they pick it up eventually later is what you're saying.
Right, yeah.
Okay, and classroom behavior. Have you seen it change now with all the great technology that I love? Do you feel like now students are less engaged? Because I remember when I used to go to school, cell phones were there, but it was like the flap phone that was in your pocket, or you'd leave it in the locker because, you know, you just had to text mom and dad to come pick you up. So we were more engaged in class, and classroom behavior was like the cool kids in the back, the nerds in the front, let's pass notes. How has that changed now?
Well, you know, a lot of the boards across the country and in North America are switching to having kids bring their own devices to school.
Okay.
And so that is being the cool thing now, is to bring your own device and work on it and find your own information, do your projects, use Google Drive and do whatever you need. So that's kind of the push right now. And as far as the behavior goes, I think that there are a lot of you know, good programs put in place to make sure kids are staying on track, using their devices properly, especially when they get to the higher grades. You know, I know that in the higher grades, they want to succeed and they want to achieve, and they're doing that.
So they're not necessarily always on social media when they have their devices on.
I don't know about that. I know I remember reading an article recently about university students who you know, it's hard. It's you know, they've got it in front of them. They're trying to do the lecture and write down, and you just want to check Facebook or
you're
something.
Like, oh my God, who replied me?
Right, that's right. Yeah. So it's that, you know, a little bit of willpower has to kick in there.
It's tough.
It is tough.
And do you feel like now in classrooms for teachers it's more of a struggle because they sometimes feel like, who am I talking to? Because the kids are always, whether they're taking notes or not, they're kind of disconnected, or do you feel
I think you're speaking more of a high school level. I personally don't teach high school, but I know a lot of kids who are in high school, and I know that generally they're working hard and they're doing what they need to do. I'm sure there's the odd student who gets distracted now and then, but I think most often you do see the kids actually staying on task and doing what they need to do. I haven't heard of any major problems or read about it in the papers or anything like that.
That could draw a light to it.
That could draw attention, say, hey, we've got a problem here. So generally what's out there in the media is that it's a good thing.
Do you guys feel, though, that you are more disconnected amongst your peers in your class? Like, because now, let's say you go into your classroom or your college, you know, and you're using your iPad, kind of, where do you guys feel you're disconnected with them, or you're more connected? So we're going to look at that on the other side of the break. Thank you for watching #NoFilter. Hi everyone, welcome back. On the other side of the break, we were talking about if, with the great use of technology, if actually you feel disconnected with your own peers in the classroom. So guys, do you guys feel like now that, you know, everybody's bringing in their iPads and they're on their laptops taking notes, it's kind of not like the old days where, you know, you'd like nudge the girl and like throw a kite across her? Like, do you feel like your engagement amongst yourselves as students has become less because you can kind of go in your own bubble, right? You take notes, you can go on Facebook, you can do your own thing. Do you feel like it's changed in terms of classroom connect?
Well, the way I see it is, before, it was often where, you know, there'd be a lot of distractions with speaking in class, but now the distraction is more people on their phones and texting in class. And if you think about it from a teacher's perspective and for a kid's perspective that's trying to learn, if the distraction is all silent, you can still stay there and learn. Whereas if the distraction was all speaking, it's, you know, there's noises everywhere. It's a lot harder to sort of pick up what you're saying and sort of learn.
So it's a more isolated sort of distraction.
It's easier to learn for the people that want to learn, and it's the same for the people that are just goofing off anyways.
So the cool kids goofing off can do that, and then the nerds can actually take something out of it, right? As the high school classification. Does that still exist in schools? Like, do you still see that even with the young kids? Do you hear like someone go like, "That's the nerd. He's always in the front."
I think it's more in high school.
Okay. Do you feel like that happens?
That's more of a movie thing, you know. It's not as it's a bit more blended in high school, really, you know.
So do you guys still go to the nerd for questions, or like, "Hey, give me your notes"? I was like
you go
passed
to a
out.
smart person. You don't go to that nerd, but you go to somebody who's paying attention, who's gonna know what you don't know.
And do you have great like lines like, "Hey, come on, I was sick," or like I wasn't feeling well, or something like that? What do you ease in?
You gotta get it out of them somehow.
You gotta get okay.
your studies.
Okay. So, Stuart, I have an important question that I think you'd be great to answer. How to study? Because every single subject requires a different sort of way, right? And I think that's one of the issues where they were saying like they don't know how or they don't know how to plan. But also, how do you study?
Well, it's a fantastic question because that's a huge problem.
Right.
You know, kids get to high school or they're in high school, even university, I think, and they don't know how to study. And there's different ways to study for each subject. For example, let's say English and you have essay writing. Most often, you know, it's breaking it down to parts. You know, okay, let's go back to math, for example.
Yep.
1 + 1 = 2.
Right.
2 times 2 is 4. You know, and then when you're talking fractions, 2/4 is a half. So you're talking basics of add addition leading up to fractions, and then you're multiplying fractions, and you're multiplying negative fractions, and it's a building block. English is the same way. So the problem is, you know, kids don't know how to study, you know, in order to write an essay. How do you write an essay? How do you write an essay question on a test? They're not really sure because they don't know how to write a proper paragraph.
Exactly.
And then building that paragraph together, transition words, an introduction, a conclusion, it's building it together. So, you know, best advice is to know the basics.
Okay.
Mathematics, you can't start studying for a math exam a week or two before the exam. You need to review every night. You know, treat it, I say to treat it like a job, almost like a 9-to-5 job. You come home, what did I do today in math? Review that day. And at the end of the week, you've reviewed everything, so it's fresh in your mind. If you're going to go, you know, have an exam in January, you try to go back to what you did in September.
You're not going to remember it.
There's no chance. So again, it's part of that whole planner I was talking about. And you plan every night, okay, I'm going to study 10 minutes, just what I did today in review. And don't let it all crash down at the end. So studying for math is very different because studying math requires reviewing the concepts and going over them and building on them. Right? History too, you're not going to remember all the history and science last minute. You need to read it as you're going along and do that. And that's a great way, you know, you can test yourself, ask yourself questions. As a teacher, how do we get questions? Well, the same way you could get the questions too. So you have your history, and you write down a whole bunch of questions or science, and you pretend you're the teacher, and you write it on cue cards. There's nothing we can create and make up that's out of the blue. You can make up the same questions, right?
And
I know going
online
too, you could probably find half of the answers. So.
Do you feel, actually, it's funny you said that, just a side question, as a teacher now, or as someone who's viewed it, I guess, because you probably deal with lots of other teachers and stuff in your career and networking, do you feel like a lot of them feel like they're being questioned now more than ever because they have, like, I always say, like, Google sir to answer everything? Because, like, I know in a lot of other industries, a lot of parents, for example, where we did an episode on family communication, a lot of parents say, well, when I give my kid advice, they'll double check it on Google. It's like, but where are the days where you'd believe if mom would say this is going to make you sick? So with education, is it the same way that now if they're asking you something, they're like, oh, okay, that's what you're saying? And then do you feel like you have to revalidate yourself because kids are using sort of online to get sort of a confirmation?
Well, again, I don't deal with that. I know with the older students, they have that. And they do need to Google it and validate it through like, you know, some well-known site and go from there. So I know that happens. You know, I've dealt with kids in the higher grades
that are kind of
not as a teacher outside of teaching, and they've had those issues where they need to check it and see it. And then it's also teaching kids how to validate a source. Is this a good source? Just because it's there doesn't mean it's right. And that's another important thing. You don't want to go and get the wrong answers. It's like asking the wrong kid for the answers. You're going online and you're looking at the wrong site, and then you mess up. So.
And you think the information's accurate, right? So how to find the right source, how to get away from plagiarism, I think that's huge, right? Yeah. Plagiarism is always something that a lot of people don't know. What am I rewording? What am I actually taking? How am I sourcing information? And are these things that you guys sort of are comfortable with? Are these sort of things that you feel in your education or in teaching like you guys haven't gotten that?
I mean, there's a lot of things. I think that sucks is a lot of the skills, like if we even go back to studying or like citing things, is you're not taught them when you're young. You're not taught them right up from the time where you're in grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, and so all of a sudden you have to learn out of nowhere. I think if there's more of a progression of learning, you kind of learn over time, you get more comfortable with these things and you're able to use them.
So you feel like it's hard to just suddenly, as you get older, kind of say, okay, now I need to start becoming organized, or now I need to sort of build a plan.
Definitely.
And with more younger groups, do we implement that?
Well, there is. Everything like you were saying,
is a build-up.
It is being taught in schools, and you know, everything from citing to creating and building the blocks. Everything that they need, they're getting. It's just a matter of how it's being implemented. Is it being practiced at home? It's really important. Like you know, I've seen kids go through the system from younger grades. I've worked outside of the school system with kids from younger grades all the way to university, and I see everything's there for them. Everything they need is there and ready for them.
For you.
The tools are there. It's just a matter of, do they use it? Are they using it properly? Are they getting support at home? That's a key factor too, right?
Do you have the motivation? Do you have people at home that are, with you, or they're encouraging this sort of studying?
Huge part. It's a huge part.
Okay.
So I don't, I wouldn't say that there's anything that kids are really missing these days in the educational process.
Okay.
I think it's a matter of implementing them, practicing them, getting that support at home. It's really important.
Do you guys feel like you have that support when you guys kind of is like sort of studying or focusing on where you want to go in life career-wise? Are these sort of things that are really pushed, or is it sort of underlined? Your parents are like, you're old enough now, you study, if you fail, it's your thing.
Well, I mean, obviously it's important to have good, a support system to help you succeed. But when it comes down to it, a lot of the stuff we learn in high school now is a lot different than some of the stuff our parents learned in high school or someone at home learned in high school. I mean, I don't have an older sibling, but somebody that might have that as an assistance. But otherwise, it's sort of you and your teachers and your peers, and you're on your own. And at home, it's more independent work.
Right. Okay. So, Anish, now that you're in college, have you seen that shift happen? Do you feel like at home now they kind of are off your back a little bit because you're the kid in college now?
It is for the most part, because especially where I go to school, I live away from home.
Okay.
So it's simply my grades kind of they are definitely up to me. I'll go to my friends if I need to, go to some of my teachers if I need to, and there will be times where if we need to study or if we're working on a big assignment. They'll push you for it.
All right. Yeah. Hold that thought. On the other side of the break, we are going to talk a little bit more, and we're also going to talk about learning disabilities, how it has changed in the education system, and what we can do. Hi everyone, welcome back. We were talking about some great study tips, the education system overall, and some great things you can do to better how you actually plan and focus when you study. I have a question for you guys. Maybe you can tell me, what about students with learning disabilities in high schools? What is the system like? Do you know anyone who has one, for example? And is it more challenging, or is the system there in school that provides you guys sort of the sources?
I have one. I had one in high school. And I know a lot of kids, at least the ones that I knew that had them, because what would end up happening is we would all kind of get pushed into one classroom, so it would just be a bunch of people who had different learning disabilities, but the fact that we all had one was the one thing we had in common. And we'd all be put in the same room, and we would kind of work things out that way. Now, from what they told me is that they were all diagnosed with their learning disabilities from earlier stages in their life, so maybe like grade 1, grade 2.
Okay.
For me personally, I wasn't diagnosed with mine until the 8th grade.
Oh, so it was much later in your studying.
It was. So once I got to high school, it was a bit of a different change, but I was still getting used to it. It was I don't want to say a culture shock, but it is a change of what you're normally used to, because all of a sudden, you're sitting in the classroom, you're doing your work, whatever, and it's not that big of a, not that big of a deal. Next thing you know, you get a phone call, you're saying, okay, you need to go down to this room, and they don't give you a reason. I think they need to do work on getting rid of that isolation from the rest of your peers.
Because then you feel sort of that there's something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you guys have that as well? Are you guys in sort of a schooling system which has something available for people with disabilities?
Well, I think that there's definitely parts set up to help us all succeed. Like in some of my classes, people that need more time, they do the test with us, and then afterwards they have the more time later. So it sort of evens out, and I don't feel like the people with learning disabilities are sort of pushed aside or seemed as different. It's sort of just a part of the community as a classroom.
Okay, so your school, I guess, they don't take them separately out of the program.
Not for a minor learning
Which I think was what Anish is saying, is it would be nice if it could happen more often so that they can kind of assimilate more, I guess, right?
Yeah, because that what you said, because everyone kind of they don't have them isolated, they have them all.
No, we're all in the room together and we're all writing the test together.
Yeah, so we didn't have that. So what we would do for when I was writing tests, I would end up sitting in a room by myself or with a couple other people who had the same level of accommodations I did, and would allow us to write the test for a longer amount of time, for a scribe if we needed one, access to a computer to help write, stuff like that. But I think one of the reasons might have been due to the fact that, because in high school you have to have a teacher supervising you at all times. No teacher wants to stick around for twice the amount of time of an hour-and-a-half exam.
It also might have been because you might have needed that accommodation. Right. To be in a quiet space.
Yeah.
Maybe, whereas maybe someone else wouldn't need that accommodation. They're okay. So maybe that's why You know,
that's a good point, Stuart, because I remember even up till university when I was doing my master's up to like 3 years ago, there were certain students that were okay. They would take more time in the same classroom, but then there was some that would actually request and had a request to sit isolated because that's what they needed to focus.
Right, and we have so many kids have so many different needs, and the idea of inclusivity is very important, but also the idea of catering to those needs so that the child succeeds is really important. So some students really need that quiet space. Others just might need a laptop or some sort of word processing program. Some might need more time, and that's why different situations would present themselves.
So when a lot of them figure out what their disabilities are when they're young, as teachers or as somebody in the sort of, I guess, career workforce of this, are you guys kind of told that, okay, this person has this disability and you have to kind of prep them this way, or unless told, you guys don't get involved in that space?
No, we're very much involved.
Okay.
When it goes through the school, it goes through the school, it goes through meetings and with the parents and with the principal, and it might be with a school psychologist.
Okay,
and
wonderful.
It goes through a whole meeting, and it's nipped in the bud right away.
Perfect.
When there's signs and it's dealt with, and children are given that opportunity. As we were saying, they were given accommodations or modifications that they need.
So the care is there to ensure you succeed.
The care is definitely there so the kids succeed, and that's what's great about it. I remember when I was younger in school, we didn't have that. If you just didn't do well, you just didn't do well. And I remember even when I was younger, and I'm older than you guys, but kids actually failed grades when I was younger. They don't now, because we make sure they succeed, as you were saying, right? Set them up for success by catering to their needs.
That's a funny question I have for you. Someone was telling me that today the education system is set up so that nobody fails. Which is phenomenal in the aspect because we're all going to go home happy and mom and dad are going to get the graduation picture with our hat that they always wanted. But in doing that, does that mean as they get older, we're kind of setting them up to think that they're ready to pass, and then when they go to like university stages, it's like, oh my God.
I don't think you get that shock when they get older. I think it's generally that the accommodations or modifications, anything that's put in place, follows them so they can succeed and they can learn. And if they do get to that point, then kudos to them. They're there for a reason, and if they get there, then they will find those ways to succeed. As we talked about those study habits and all those kinds of things. Right?
What about tutoring? That's my last but most important question that I have. I know even when I used to go to school, it was like if you needed extra help, you would get a tutor. Your parents would invest that time. They would get someone that was there for you, and most of the time the tutor would be there for you from the start of the course all the way to the end because you needed that help and you didn't want to fail. Do you feel like it actually helps, or do you almost feel like sometimes it can be more confusing because I'm learning something from my teacher in class? Because I remember when I used to get tutored for math, as we just proved the point correctly, I was terrible at math. So when I would get tutored for math, like my tutor would explain it to me one way, and then I'd be like, no, but my prof said that. And he's like, okay, but this is ultimately like math is math. Like this is how you do it. It's just a question of explanation. And I remember we'd always go back and forth versus like, no, but that's what he said. So with tutoring, can it actually benefit you, or sometimes can it cause more complications?
That's a really good question. I've read studies and articles where it says that it does help, and others say that it doesn't help. So I think it really depends on the tutor and the situation. Now, ideally, a student should go to their teacher first, and that should be the front line for any extra help. Teacher's number one. If the parent feels that the child needs extra help outside of the school, then if the parent wants to get a tutor, I think, from my experiences, that a really good tutor is one who says, okay, I'm going to work with the teacher to help this child succeed. So, for example, if let's say you were taking a high school English and you weren't doing well, right? If your teacher says maybe that part of the problem is your writing skills and maybe not descriptive and not writing properly, I wouldn't go as a tutor and tutor him on something different. I would work on what the teacher says. So it's a team program where everybody has to work together. So I think a good tutoring program, if parents decide to get that outside of the school, would be one where everybody works together. And really, ideally, it's the teacher, the parent, the child. Those are the three best people involved. And the parent can be a tutor too.
Yeah, you have to work basically together. Otherwise, there's a lack of sync.
So if they need a tutor, as you were saying, your question is, if they've gone to the school, they've worked with the teacher, the parent's working. If a parent really feels that they need outside help, then a tutor who can work with the teacher. It's really important.
Perfect. Thank you so much for watching #NoFilter, everybody. And for more study tips, check out our website. Have a good day.